everybody. Welcome to the TCCW Live. We are here with our guest, Coach Stephen Thomas, and of course, our lovely core member here, James, who is also our moderator. Welcome, everybody. Stephen, if you will, please kind of give us some intro. How did you end up in the carnivore space? What got you here? Because we don't all trip and fall into this.
Okay. Well, firstly, it's nice to meet James, who I've never seen or met before. So good to see you. Right. Well, it's a long story, but I'll shorten it. I used to believe in carbs, and I came to carnivore, believe it or not, because I should have been the poster boy for the food guidelines, because I did everything right, in inverted commas. You know, I did all the skim milk and oatmeal in the morning and fruit and veg, and didn't touch red meat at all. And, basically I did everything. I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I was an advanced personal trainer. So I was definitely moving enough. I definitely had the activity. And for many, many years, I outrun a very bad diet. But of course, most people in those days would have called it a healthy diet, no fat, all that sort of stuff, fruit and veg, like I say. So, as I was saying before we went on, I was brought up in that environment. My mother and father both believed the food guidelines, and sadly, they both died when I was quite young. My dad, when I was age 10. I will get to the answer, by the way, but without this context, it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah. No, my mum died as much as you want. Yeah.
Yeah, my mum died when I was 23. She had colon cancer, and the worse the cancer got, the more fibre they gave her. The more carbs they gave her, and she died. And I also lost a girlfriend to breast cancer, who, oddly enough, was a nurse that was looking after my mother. And I met her on the ward. And so by the time I was 24, I was pretty much on my own. And I'm not asking for the world's smallest violin to come out. This is what happened. That was the hand I was dealt. If you don't know this, Selena, I am deaf, and I lip read, and I have subtitles on right now. And about that time, I was also told that I'd lost my hearing. So there you go. But on the plus side, the worst things in my life had happened, so it could only get better, or so I thought. So, I dived into a career and did things that I really liked, and thought I was doing really well. Did a bodybuilding tournament, went out and posed in Venice Beach. I was training next to Sean Ray, all that sort of stuff, and I looked really good. So if this old fart at 61 had gone back to speak to me when I was 24, 25 and said, you should be eating red meat, you should be eating fat, I would have laughed in his face, because I just didn't see it. I can remember reading Muscle and Fitness magazine and them trying a fat diet, and thinking, well, I'm not even going to read that, because that's not going to work, is it? So I was really anti-fat and very much into carbs. But if we fast forward it to when I got to about 40, that's when things started to go slightly wrong. Now, I'd done very well in the advanced training, personal training part of my life. I also had qualifications in rehab, lower back specialism, and all that. So I was understanding physiology from a different sort of perspective, not so much nutrition. And then I trained someone who was a type 1 diabetic, and she wanted to get to the Olympics, and she wanted to do that. And we agreed that we would do this training program. I did get her to the Olympics, she was javelin thrower, so I was quite proud of that. And we realized that my trained advice, because at this point I did have a specialist practitioner status as a diabetic and obesity specialist, that everything I'd learned about diabetes didn't seem to work. And she lived it, and she realized it didn't work. So that was chiseling away at my understanding, because what I was suggesting didn't help her at all whatsoever. And then I started to run a daily clinic where we get people in, and I was about 45, 46, and I still believed in high carb. And I did this sort of surgery where we'd have people coming in to try and lose some weight, try and manage their diabetes, and everything I was doing was by the book. And then maybe the next week or the next month, someone would come in, and they'd look really great. And I'd say, oh, wow, what are you doing? And they'd always say to a person, ignoring you. And that was the era when Atkins, we didn't say carnivore, we didn't say keto. It was
Right.
I'm cutting the carbs, or I'm doing Atkins, that sort of thing. So for 4 years, I still dug my heels in. So I can never, ever criticize someone for believing the food guidelines and not listening to my advice, because I lived it, so blind to it, you wouldn't believe it. But by age 50, it had all gone wrong for me. So I had a coronary artery calcium scan of 639 because I was in hospital with lower left pain. And I thought, and this is where my parents' story comes in, because my mother had died of colon cancer, I believed the genetic link, and I thought, right, that's me. I'm going to die young. I'm going to have colon cancer. This is it. This is my number. It's up. And every time I tell that story, I can still see myself looking at the bloke opposite me, his family crying and all that sort of stuff. And it was just a rude awakening. And I just decided to go low carb and see if nutrition would make a difference. Wow, what a difference it made. I mean, my body composition improved. Niggly things like I'd always had athlete's foot, and I'd tried everything: duct tape, acid, talcum powder in my socks, hair dryer between my toes after doing a shower. Never got rid of it. And it just went. I used to have a stress spot here. That went. Oddly enough, fast forward a little bit, my hearing got better, which my audiologist could not believe. He said, I've never seen this before. And there was an uptick of my hearing, a little bit, not a lot, but anyway. So I went low carb, and of course the low carb did really well for me, but it was still not perfect. So I did that for 3 years, and then I did 2 years of keto. And the more carbs I took out, the better I felt. And then I joined MeatRx because I went carnivore, and I liked what Dr. Sean Baker was doing. MeatRx morphed into Revero now, which is a brilliant thing that Sean's running. But anyway, I started there at MeatRx. I got qualified as a carnivore coach. I've also got an honours degree in physiology and health sciences, so that does help. And the obesity and diabetes thing. Also, during this time, was running a private blood testing service as well. So I did that for a decade. So it all came together. I was a trained phlebotomist, always doing training, always trying to learn on the job. And it was going to be a 30-day challenge. Here I am 6 years later, still doing carnivore, thinking it's the best thing since sliced bread, which is a terrible phrase to use, but you know what I mean.
Yes, I do.
It's really, really been, life-changing for me, absolutely life-changing. I don't really believe in the term pre-diabetes. I think that, well, we know that's a National Institute of Health's catchphrase. It was made up in a canteen during a lunch break. But I was pre-diabetic, if we're going to believe those things. So that's gone as well. Yeah. So I didn't really fall into it. It was a logical progression from having very low carbs to incredibly low carbs to no carbs. And that was it. Just sensible, isn't it? Really, but it is also something to be aware of if you're working out, because working out more and more doesn't necessarily work. So in other areas of your life, if something really works for you and you're training 3 times a week and you've got a great body composition, you need that recovery. And just a little caveat. Don't think that, if 3 days a week is going to make me look amazing, 7 days a week is going to make me look like Arnold Schwarzenegger used to look. So,
right.
But with this way of eating, the lower the carbs, the better I felt. It's just a direct proportional relationship for me. So I'm not, this does not come naturally to me. I don't like being online. I don't like hearing myself. But, I had to go on YouTube, because how else are you going to get around, and how else are you going to do the meetings online? So it was sort of forced my hand a little bit, but so that's my story, I think.
Well, you have such a lovely presence online. So from somebody on the outside perspective, because I do understand that whole kind of concept of being on camera and do it. This isn't me. That's not, nobody wants to see this. Like that kind of perspective. And I experience, when I watch anything that you've done or put out, or different lives or podcasts that I've seen you on, you're very lovely. And I always enjoy enjoy. So
No, thank
we are
you.
always our like worst critics for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in film and media. I did some work as a stuntman, and I did stand up. I was on national TV a couple of times. The positive side of being deaf, which is at that point there was a band called the Atomic Kittens. They weren't the best singers in the world, but they were very sexy. So that was one of the jokes. I'd say one of the good things about being deaf is I can just look at the Atomic Kittens. It's that
Right.
sort of thing. So it was flipping something that's bad and looking at all the positives. So that's the best way to get through it, to be honest. And many people say, "Oh, I'd never know that you were deaf," but that's called coping. You just have to cope.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big thing that I want to get across, actually, because many people present in a way that isn't the truth. You present what you want the world to see. So James could be sitting there and he could have stomach cramps, just say, well, he wouldn't come on and go, oh. So when people say, oh, my friend's drinking lots of beer and eating lots of pizza and he seems all right. Well, you don't really know. You're not in that body, and it could be me. It could be a disaster building up in the background,
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
that's the thing. We have to be mindful that when we start judging ourselves against other people and they're eating a bad diet and they seem to be doing okay, you don't know the history, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Don't judge yourself against somebody else, just how you are. If you get better, it's working for you.
Absolutely. James, go ahead and jump in there.
Yeah, thank you. Great story, Stephen, by the way.
Okay.
I wanted to share as far as you talked about loss. And it's interesting that so many people get into this lifestyle of carnivore and no carb because of either drastic health situations with either themselves or loved ones. I don't know of too many people who just kind of casually get into it. So I was actually pre-diabetic as well, but nothing dramatic in my life. I wasn't diagnosed with like cancer, for example, as Selena once was. But it was through my father and his health challenges, which ultimately, now he's passed away almost a year and a half ago. But through that whole journey, that's how I got to carnivore. And I think it's really important to look at the positives, just like you're saying. If you're battling through, we don't know what we're all battling through, but you're going through your hurdles and you looked at as a positive, as a solution to find improvement. And the foundation, I'll just wrap up this comment here. The foundation, I believe, to the body healing itself is through food. I think lifestyle as a whole matters, but I think it's what we eat, which is the foundation for how we output mentally, how we output physically, and the overall energy that we give to the world.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's really important, James. What you give out to the world is really important. I mean, you came on and I immediately thought, well, there's a good guy. And you just, well, no, it seeps through. Selena, you come across very caring and kind and nice. And James came on and it was like, yeah, these nice couple of guys, this is great. This is, it's a nice room to be in. And you can pick up a vibe without a shadow of a doubt. And you're absolutely right, James. I mean, if you lose someone or you witness ill health with someone that you love, whether, one of the frustrating things is, I don't know your situation, but I know many people that I've spoken to, that I've had consults with. Big frustration is firstly getting somebody they love to actually listen to you, because they tend to listen to the doctors. And that's quite frustrating, because you want to go, I'm your son, believe me, don't believe the doctor, and it is frustrating. But secondly, it does make you realize you only get one life. This is not the rehearsal. And you've got to do the best you can to help others. Actually, that's the first thing. I think that's what we're on the planet for. I don't think we're here to promote ourselves. I think we're here to try and help others. That's my thing, to be honest. And if I could go back in time and know what I know now, then boy, my mum's life, my dad's life would have been very different. But we can't do that. So life is full of regrets as well. So don't be the person that keeps putting this off. If you're umming and ahhing about carnivore, give it 30 days and prove the concept. Just try it, because what have you got to lose? You've got everything to gain and nothing to lose. You could try it and think, right, okay, it didn't work for me, which has never, in a 30-day challenge, I've never had anyone say that. They're always, well, I've lost a bit of weight and I feel a bit more energized, you know. So I think just be open-minded. But yeah, when a loved one has a problem, well, boy, does that really kickstarts a lot of people's journey, definitely.
It does. One of the things kind of when my husband and I started, it was sort of that same perspective of, we were like, okay, we're going to do this for 90 days. Because I understood very clearly, you know, the pattern of if you can make it 90 days, like you're either going to break habits, you're going to start new habits, you're going to go through your detoxes and actually see what's happening. No matter what you're trying out, doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And so we committed, and it was like 90 days. And I was like, at the 90 days, you know, if we don't like this or whatever, you know, at least we tried something. We took that step. We took it upon ourselves to go outside of the box, to figure out what was best. You know, and here we are almost 2 years later and have not hopped off. And you kind of go, okay, I don't know of any other dietary lifestyle regimen, if you want to call it that, because it's just a lifestyle to me now. Like it's not a diet, it's not a fad, it's not whatever people want to put it as. It is now my lifestyle. And that you go on, that by halfway through or 3/4 of the way through of the time you committed, you're not counting the seconds until it's over. Every other experience that I have ever gone through, whether it was the chicken, rice, and broccoli diet, whether it was the being vegan, whether it was being vegetarian. I mean, I was vegan for most of my life, but most of that time I felt hungry, like hungry in a way that I didn't understand. I couldn't describe it. It's just, I was always in wanting, and I didn't know what it was that I was wanting. And being carnivore is the first time in my entire life that I have not counted the seconds down until the challenge was over, until the, you know, and you kind of go, there's something to that. For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's just eating. I know this sounds a bit sort of glib, but it's how we should eat. You know, and I know we give it labels, a carnivore diet or carnivore lifestyle, way of eating and all that, but actually it's just food. So, you know, here where we are in this country now, we say, let's go and get some Chinese food. Well, in China, they call it just food. You know, they don't go in China, we're going to get some Chinese food. So I think that's how we should think about things. It's like, this is just the species appropriate diet, proper human diet, like Ken Berry says, whatever. This is how we should eat. And we've adapted not to this way of eating, but we've adapted to all the bad things, all the wrong ways of eating. We're now just resetting to how we should eat. Yeah. That's my view, really.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Our food system, modern food system, every corner is a fast food restaurant. And you go, obviously, the grocery stores, you walk inside and all of it, except for the back, at least here in the US, the back wall has the proper foods, meat, bacon, eggs. So all the outer aisles, inner aisles are just fake. And where you drive and your influence with billboards, I don't see a billboard here in the US. I don't see a TV commercial about real food. Have some eggs, have steak, you know, have your fake food product. It's everywhere. It's tough. So you're right. I think it's just waking up and returning to what's proper. And that's why I think, you know, it does have labels, but you're right. It really is just being in tune with who we are as a species. Is everything else, if you realize that's not food, and one thing I want to point out, in my opinion, on this, and I see it consistently through observation, is like, excluding, say, obviously vegans will supplement with protein, but I think people can get by because they eat enough meat and eat enough eggs, but they're not thriving because they buy into the food system, literally, of getting the fries and the shakes and the sodas. And so then you're in this middle ground, or you're kind of like teetering, and that's why we have some chronic, health issues that may not be, as I call them, the big bad wolf, but that's still that slight. I got this pain, nagging pain over the last 5 years. It's getting worse, X, Y, Z, and it's like once you cut through the food system, get back to species appropriate diet, and suddenly we find healing. So it's, again, I just want to cap off this comment by saying it's tough to navigate when you're inundated with food product every day.
Yeah, but you've used a fabulous term there, food product. I mean, recently the CEO of McDonald's ate the Big Arch burger. Well, when I say he ate it, he was able to do the world's smallest bite and was able to take a molecule off of it, I think. And even that was edited. Yeah, he never once said this is glorious food. He said it's a product. He said this is a great product. And it is a product. Food is now a product for all the companies. It's nothing to do with nutrition. It's nothing to do with anything other than trying to make you addicted. And I think if you go back, just 30 years, there was less information available, but that also means there was a lot less misinformation. And now we are inundated with misinformation, and it's all pretty much funded in one way or another, whether it's direct or indirectly, by the people that want to make money out of you. And like you say, the supermarket, well, if it has a health food aisle, okay, that means everywhere else isn't healthy. So we've got to start thinking outside, as you say, outside the box. That doesn't always mean that outside the box thinking is great, because you can think outside the box and be completely wrong. But in the main, we've got to start looking at things and questioning, well, why are we being told that? Why is that happening? Why is this better than that? When we used to eat these things for hundreds of thousands of years, like a piece of salmon, why is that bad? Why is beef bad? And seed oil or a pot noodle or something, that's actually okay, or what was the cereal? The cereal that Kraft said was great. This hyper palatable, sugary, colourful cereal. I can't remember what they're called in America, but anyway, that got a better rating than beef and eggs. And you just think, well, that's obviously stupid before you even started.
And the sad part that I find with that, more than just seeing it for my own awareness and acknowledgement of understanding this, is that people in the major part of society are that, as kindly as I can put it, are that gullible. They're so trusting into the
Trusting
system.
is a better word. Yeah, trusting, yes.
They're so trusting into the system that they, without any logical deduction, just go, oh, okay, this is better for me. This is healthy. I need to eat this bowl of Cheerios every morning for my heart. I need to do blah, blah, blah. And you kind of go, it's not fair to the people to just automatically go, oh, why can't you see? Because the primary portion of society has been raised with this propaganda that they don't know enough themselves to be able to deduce the answer that is best for them. They need to rely on the specialist, on the whatever, which is sad, because it's like, well, yes, it's not that there's not a place for a specialist, for a doctor, for whoever is highly educated in whatever portion of it, but in all reality, they're not the only ones who are able to educate themselves. Like, you have this wealth of information fully available, almost annoyingly available to everyone now. And people are just so trusting that they don't even take the time to research and look into it and be able to go, wait a minute, why is Cheerios better for me than eggs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
I was just So I would just
Yeah,
say,
go
listen
Jen.
to Stephen Thomas. Just listen to Stephen Thomas. You'll get into information.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's a nice analogy about, where do you get your information from? And I didn't realize that I think this comes from Jason Fung. But anyway, I think it gets it across that two lions, they were reading about what they should eat. And they read that, well, cows seem to do really well on grass. So maybe we should eat grass. So this is what the lions did. They went to an all grass diet. And of course, they died. And then the cows are looking at the grass. About a month later, they're looking and they're thinking, well, what should we eat? And they managed to see that meat is the best thing. So they stop eating grass and they start eating meat and they die. So it's all about being appropriate, eating the things that your body is meant to eat. So if you look at things like, I don't know, if you talk about studies, for instance, and they use mice, well, mice are nothing like humans.
Exactly.
They are completely different. They don't eat meat. They don't tend to eat meat, and they have very different lifespans and everything like that. So it's also how the information is gathered and what are the vested interests. And this is the problem, where nobody can trust where the information is coming from, or who's behind it, or why are they saying that. So the best thing you can do is use your eyes and your ears and your own experience. So if you do try carnivore and 90 days later you feel better, you shouldn't need a study or someone to tell you this, that, the other. You should be able to go, I feel better. My body composition's better. If you do, is a little proviso. If you are on medications, for instance, you do need to speak to the person that's doing your medications or your dosing, because that's how powerful this way of eating is. Blood pressure meds, you might not need anywhere near the same dosage or any at all. So you do need to get that checked. And the same with, diabetic medications, because you're not eliciting a huge glucose response because you're not eating carbs, then you might need less medications. Well, that alone should tell you something. If that's the standard advice of anyone that's coaching someone to try carnivore, which it should be if they're responsible, well, you're actually saying this is so good you might not need your medications. Well, that alone should just be enough for that person to go, wow, oh, okay, you must be confident in what you're saying.
I wanted to add to your point about studies is a lot of the general population around the world isn't aware that nutritional studies are publicly sold, publicly traded through, excuse me, let me clarify my thoughts here, through publicly traded companies. So this is a for-profit business. And I think if anybody is invested in any market or invested in any financial capacity, you're looking to make money. And if you now understand that nutritional studies are tied to financial incentives and shareholders and stakeholders, then you realize what I'm reading right now, or this study, is probably to help funnel or generate revenue. It's not about human health and biology. It's strictly on business. So let alone, to your point, like finding results, removing medications because there's no need for them anymore, finding, again, using the word observation, which is clearly the early phases of science that anybody and every human can achieve themselves. But look at you and look at me and look at other carnivores, and are we alive? Are we thriving is the word I like to use. Yes. And then to your point, Selena, to the same people who are going to support like a Tufts School of Nutrition, I believe, like, no, you need your cereal, you need your carbs. Well, hello. I'll wait. I'm standing right here, whether it's digital or in front of you, and say no.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I do have some questions that you had mentioned a little bit earlier about how when you become carnivore and you start functioning off of that type of food style, that your fitness regime might need to shift And coming from somebody who I grew up with, my parents did competitive bodybuilding when I was young, so think of late 80s, early 90s.
Hmm.
Um, so my perspective growing up was very much, you basically do it till you drop dead on the gym floor. Like, so what is some of the kind of understanding as to why it is not as needed as in as much, not that it's not needed, but you get what I'm saying, as much as before, when you're having to like burn everything off so constantly all the time, I guess would be the best way to look at it, when you're running off of carbs versus when you're fat adapted. I'm not sure that
Well,
question came out clear.
no, I got to it in the end. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, if you're a high carb athlete, then there are more carbohydrates. So you probably need to have more activity because you're
Mm.
loading up the carbs and you don't want to have the elevated levels of insulin. So if you are very active, you're going to find your GLUT4 transporter translocate to the membrane in your muscle and uptake more glucose. So it's that classic, you're trying to out-train a bad diet. Well, you can definitely out-train it for a bit. I just want to go a bit broader because that's quite a specific question. But
Yeah,
when it
yeah.
comes to training, the first thing to do is to work out what your goal is, because you can't give a one-size-fits-all response. Jonathan's in the
Right.
room. I don't know if he's still here, but his training goals would not suit a 60-year-old woman who just wants to look okay in clothes. So
Right.
firstly, it should be goal driven, what you're trying to get out of it. So it should be quite a smart thing. If you want to be a 100-meter sprinter and you never once go on a track and run 100 meters, you're not training correctly. It's
Right.
that simple. So you should be training for an appropriate goal. That's first thing. Secondly, exercise is good across the board. So even if you're in a chair and you can't get out and you're overweight, an intense exercise is getting out of the chair for you. Don't worry about everybody else. Don't worry about going online and looking at insane amounts of high intensity training with battle ropes and all that. Getting out of the chair is your goal. And it might be that you just need to do that 10 times over the day, obviously safely with people around you. But you will get a physiological training response to that. You will start to be able to get out of the chair easier. And that whole principle is all the way across exercise physiology, also to the point where you should be giving yourself recovery time and not overtraining, which I did sort of allude to earlier. So you probably will get more bang for your buck with this way of eating because, firstly, you're not eliciting insulin all the time. You're not overstocking yourself with glucose all the time. You're eating adequate amounts of protein. And this might be a serendipitous thing about carnivore, because many people undereat good quality protein, even when they think that they're eating quality protein. So they might be having a lot of protein bars, protein shakes, which is not good quality protein compared to, say, a ribeye, a lamb or something like that, and even eggs to a lesser degree. So that's the thing about training. There is no one size fits all. If you wanted to do very broadly, what you should be doing to get fit is anything that extends you in an area where you want to do something. So again, getting out of the chair, if you can't do that, then that's what you should train to do. And then once you've got that and you can get out of a chair really easily, then it's walking to the end of the garden. Then once it's walking to the end of the garden, and that's done easily, then it's walking to the post office or to the shop. And then the next thing is, well, maybe I could lift some weights a little bit. And you need to push yourself. There's no point in me getting this pen and doing a bicep curl with it, because my bicep will not be stressed by it. I'm not that weak yet. And
hopefully never.
You need to tell your body, I'm going to put it in this state which is difficult, and I'm going to push to the edge, the physiological edge. So what will happen when I rest the next day, my body will be like, okay, we need to adapt. This idiot's going to keep lifting heavy things in this way, so we need to improve all the mechanics. We need to repair
Mm.
everything. And this is where undereating is a problem. You need to make sure that you eat enough to be able to give your body the raw materials. But it isn't rocket science.
Mhm.
People make it rocket science. Again, Jonathan's looking at low body percentage and, being really ripped. That's scientific. You do need to know what you're doing and portion size, because that's competitive, that's professional. But for the average person, if you're going to the gym and you just want to keep your movement and you want to be limber and your posture to be good, if you're going to the gym 3 times a week and you're in there maybe 30 minutes and you work hard, you make it count. Kevin Keegan, a footballer I loved, used to say, it's not the hours you put in, it's what you put in the hours. So if you go in and you spend 30 minutes in there, but 25 minutes you're sitting on your backside looking at your phone, that's not true. Right then. I definitely see that. It's a big frustration. But you go and you work out hard, you know what you're doing. You don't, like leg day. I know it's a big joke in sort of the bro community, but you can see people and you they don't train their legs. They look ridiculous. So you've got to do all body compound movements. You've got to move everything and make it as functional as possible. I think that's it. But do you know what? One of the easiest exercises is walking, because it ticks so many boxes. You're outside. Your biomechanics are being moved. It's just great for downloading or having a think and being in touch with nature. So, I'm a big fan of things like walking, which is incidental exercise. It's not going to push your physiological edge, but it's a great exercise to add in, and you will feel better if you walk. And you can even see your body composition change with, decent amount of walking as well. I mean, I just came back from Portugal, and over 6 days we walked 125,000 steps, about 60 miles. But we were up very early and going to bed very late, and just walking around the city and doing all these different things. Didn't feel like we were doing 10 miles a day, because it was broken. We were eating 3 times actually. So exercise is so personal and individual. But when you're eating lots of carbs, it's not as easy. Because you have a lot of carbs and the body has to deal with it. So
one of the things that I experienced personally compared to when I was carb adapted is I used to, it seemed like my experience was that if I went to the gym regularly for 3-4 months on end, strength trained, and for whatever reason, I had to take 2 weeks off. When I went back, when I was carb adapted, it was like I lost like half my strength that I left with. Now, being more fat adapted, if I have to take 2 weeks off, if I have to, take any kind of significant break because of whatever's going on, when I go back, I'm pretty much starting off where I left off. I don't have that extreme strength loss that I used to experience previously. That is phenomenal to me.
Yeah, and you're very lucky that way. And I think that's true. You definitely seem to detrain quicker if you're a carb athlete than you are if you're running on fat. But I don't have enough experience of people saying what you just said to speak at length about it, but I do see it enough to say, that's definitely something I've witnessed.
Well, I wanted to quote something you said, Coach Stephen, which is very similar to a quote from Martin Luther King, which is, if you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. Just keep moving forward.
Yeah, great quote. Yeah.
I think it's so true. Do what, as you said, do what you can. But to that point, like, I also want to talk about my own workout briefly, my workouts. And there was a period in time earlier in my 2.5-year journey of carnivore. I think it was about 6 months into about 1 year. Selena has heard this story, but I didn't work out at all. I gave into work, and I gave into just wanting to rest and go on the couch and whatnot. But I still maintained carnivore. And I didn't gain or lose muscle. I maintained fitness. I mean, to a degree, I mostly do sprints, but I got back into my workouts after 6 months. I'm not being dramatic here. I did not one single day workout. I was very poor in my lifestyle choices, but I stayed consistent with carnivore and with proper food. I came back at a level where if I was carb adapted, I, like you said, 2 weeks out of a week out from vacation as a carb adapted athlete, I was weak. So this is a whole half year where I'm maintaining weight, strength, output, and I think that's really power to what we eat.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
I know we only have a few minutes left with you. I wanted to ask, of all the things that you have learned since finding a way of living that optimally supports the human being experience, whether it's food, whether it's exercise, whether it's just mindfulness, what do you think is one of the most important things that we as people should really strive for or take into consideration to care for, most importantly?
Well, I think respect for others, to be honest. I'm not even going to talk about food. I think as humans, we should always be looking after people that need looking after, lifting them up, encouraging people to do the best they can, see the good in people. I think negative thoughts of any kind are very destructive to your own. If you do something nice, okay, it makes you feel better. So it's not altruistic. It's not like I am so perfect, I've just helped this person. It will make you feel better, but you are passing it forward, and that person will appreciate that someone treated them well. So imagine how you want to be treated and treat everybody like that. That's it. I mean, in the end, you will be happy because you're doing the right thing. Now, many people say to me when, talking about other things like human rights and the political situation and state-controlled Britain and how bad it is and all that, they'll say, oh, the XY person is pretty evil. How do they sleep at night? Well, they sleep at night because they don't think like you. They don't look at you like a human being that they've got to help.
Right.
So someone like Bill Gates does not care about human beings. He cares about profits and his business. So if he can introduce a food, his first thing will not be, right, how can I introduce a healthy food that's going to help humans? That's not how he thinks. And that's patently obvious from what he says. I'm not being horrible about him. I'm just being factual.
No. Yeah, exactly.
That's the way he lives. He's a business person, right? He comes from a billionaire family. They're interested in money. He wants to make profit. So he'll say, how can I make fake butter and make a big profit from it? And they're happy to use propaganda.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I don't want to be that person, and I think the three of us in this room, and if we're getting any sort of monetization from YouTube or whatever, we would earn 4, 10 times, maybe 20 times the amount if we sold out and started pushing carbs, because you get into the algorithm, because it's what the narrative is, it's what everyone, in the mainstream wants to hear about. Well, I can't do that. I can't do that because I don't believe in it. So I think that's the thing. Maybe losing my parents when I was very young, maybe losing a girlfriend makes me feel like this. She helped everybody. She worked in the ICU and she died at 23 of breast cancer. Now, that doesn't seem pretty fair to me. That seems very unfair. She was a really lovely person, but she spent her entire life. Here I am at 61, still mentioning her, so she's lived on, and everything she did, it was amazing. She helped my mum. So I know that. Well, if there was a miserable, horrible, negative person on the ward, I can't remember them because they didn't matter to me, because they didn't do anything valuable. And that's the thing. When I go out, I want people to say, well, you seem quite nice. You seem to help people. And, now you can do more to help people if you give them the right information. So that's where the food comes in. So my joke about how do you know someone is a vegan, they tell you, right, is not what you want to be. You don't want to be walking into a room going, I'm a carnivore, right, I'm going to talk about it. That's what vegans do. You want to be the example, so people come to you and they say, hey, James, you're looking pretty cool. What do you do? And then James has got permission. Right, the open door. They've asked me. I'm not telling them. I
Exactly.
am answering the question. Yeah, when I tried carnivore, it seems to work, because he seems pretty laid back. So and that's how I'd approach it. And I'd say, why don't you give it a try? Because if you're struggling, then it's probably something you're eating or something in your lifestyle. It could be that you're up till 2 o'clock in the morning, gaming or something. But nutrition is the fundamental thing you need for good health. And then all the other things are sort of subsidiary, but they help, getting out, decent sleep and all that. And I think that would be the thing I would say to everybody is just try to be better in yourself, and that will enable you to help others. You become the example. Don't worry about your partner who doesn't believe in what you're doing, because in 2 years' time, you would have been such a good example. They will believe, and you would not have to have once had an argument about it, because you did it and showed them, and you got better, and you improved your body composition, got rid of your thyroid problems, whatever it is. And that's self-evident. So I'm going back to the evidence of your eyes and your ears and your own personal experience. You don't have to have a study. You don't have to have somebody tell you about the food guidelines, because you've lived it and you've been the example for people. Now, yeah, I also understand that there are some people that just won't receive that message, and I'm afraid there's nothing you can do. You cannot make them want to understand or listen or do the right thing for them. And that is the most frustrating thing in this space, is when you think, oh boy, if they just tried it. And that's when it becomes difficult, and many people get a little bit frustrated, or they start an argument. Don't do it, because they're not receptive. No, it's like a kid. If you want your child to tidy their room, if you keep telling them, they will not tidy their room. If you keep doing it for them, they won't tidy their room. It's got to come from them. So you've got to find some smart way where they do it, and then there's no argument. Or you be the example, and you're smart, or whatever. Your room's sorted.
Right.
And that's the other thing. You can't say to your kid, tidy your room, if your room's in a mess. So
Yes.
make your life not a mess. Be the example. So they look up to you and think, yeah, they're really cool. They're my heroes, and I want to do the right thing. It's crazy. And it could also come from a third party as well. So sometimes they don't want to listen to you, but they'll listen to some other person. So I always say that, well, don't listen to me if you don't want to listen to me. You could look at Ken Berry, or you could look at Anthony Chaffee. You could just go and watch their videos,
Right.
and that's it. Sometimes, if my mum was around, would she take me seriously, or would she still think, well, that's my little Stephen? That is what's he know about bloods?
Right.
So maybe that would be the thing, that they don't see you in a sort of more professional world. So I think just be open, be the example, that's it really. Just be as good as you can to people, and just tell them the truth. And if you don't know something, say, I don't know, I've got no idea about that, but I can find out.
There's a quote that I just internalized, and I want to just keep it for myself, but I think it's worth sharing through the words that you expressed, which is, how does you know someone's a vegan? They'll tell you. How do you know someone's a carnivore? They'll show you.
Yeah, I like it.
I was inspired. Thank you. But yeah, let's show them and invite them to ask. It's great.
That's priceless. That's brilliant. Can I steal that as well then? I'll credit you.
Sure.
I think that's good.
You inspired it, so I'll give credit where it's due.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming in. I know it's about time for you to run off here in just a second. And
I'm running off, yes.
Yes, you're running off. I'm just grateful to get a chance to actually experience you one-on-one. It's nice to hear you, but it's also nice to actually get to sit in the space with you.
Thank you.
What a beautiful person.
Yeah, I'm very honored to be here, and and I'm glad you invited me, and it's always a pleasure. And I'm sorry I've got a commitment at the top of the hour, but
don't be sorry at all. This is all an impromptu conversation space we have here. So there's no requirements. It just opens.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
I think with that, we'll probably, James, if you're good, we're gonna go ahead and hop off as well. And we'll see everybody next time. So for all those that are watching, thank you so much. For all those that will be watching, I hope you guys got to learn something important today. All right. Much love, and until next time.